Let's talk about metric versus imperial. You've probably watched a lot of videos on it. Well, you know what? They're out there. But I'm going to tell you, it's easy, okay? You think this piece of maple here cares if I measure it in metric or imperial? It doesn't matter. So over the years, I want to give you a few tips that I have learned, okay, on my conversion, because I was working in Imperial in my shop in Fort Lauderdale, but I had to, and I didn't realize I was actually working in metric because I did nothing but frameless kitchens, all right, in office spaces. So I was building on a 32 millimeter system. Now, as we go through this, I want to tell you the epiphanal moment when somebody asked me how I was doing or how I was converting, and I said, I'm having a tough time learning metric. And he said to me, well, subtract 70 cents from $1, and what do you got? I go, 30 cents. And he goes, what's a quarter plus a quarter? And I went, 50 cents. He looked at me and said, you're really good at metric. And I went, what? He goes, it's based on tenths. And okay, so when I was a kid, check this out. I'm gonna write some stuff down on this piece of maple, okay? So when I was a kid, I was taught this. 25 millimeters is roughly 1 inch. So this is how I started, and this is another tip for you. What do we work in? Of course in inches, 1 inch, 2 inch, but there's basic increments that always stuck in my head. Like an inch, 6 inch, right? Okay, 12 inches. But if you start multiplying, okay, so think about this. 25 millimeters is roughly 1 inch. This is the Rotex RO 150. If we look at this, everybody, because this is a worldwide standard in a sander, right? What size pad is this? I know what you're saying. It's a 6-inch pad, right? Okay, but guess what? 25 into 150 is 6 inches. You getting it now? I'm hoping, okay? So that's just some basic, simple math. If you start using metric, you'll be measuring quicker. And that's another thing I have found, okay? Because I can divide by 2 quicker than anything. Not too long ago, I had to start using imperial, okay? And man, I had been using metric for about 12 years at that point, and I started using imperial again, and I had to figure out all the fractions. So I'm going to tell you one of the best tips ever on converting, if you're using imperial to convert to metric, is buy a metric imperial tape. Okay, I'm going to lay this one out. This is my favorite. A couple of you have asked me on Instagram about it. Okay, but so it kind of hit me that first year when I was converting. I went, somebody says, oh, do you know metric? And I went, yeah, I'm getting used to it. He said, what's 25 7/8? And I went like this. I went to my tape and I went, look, and this will help you. Look, 25 7/8 is 600. Let me figure this out. 25 7/8, I said, is 600 and what? Look at this, 630. Follow me? Millimeters. Okay, so not too far back, somebody asked me, hey, you use everything in metric. I go, yeah, I do. And I go, well, how do you measure a space like this, like the garage? And I go, I measure it with my Stabila LED laser. Okay, like watch. See, I'll take that dot and I'll aim it over there. Okay? You know, in fact, look, I'll do it like this. And the dot's on the ceiling, okay? And I hit it. Okay, now I looked at this at that time, and I'm going to tell you, I have this in meters, okay? But if you look at the dot to the ceiling, okay, is 2.344 meters. You know what? That would mess me up if I looked at that. But I know how to convert. I moved the decimal point. So it's 2,344 millimeters. Now I could take my tape and put it here and measure the ceiling, and that's what it comes out. Now, if you have a laser measurer, I know you probably haven't done this. I had to go do this. I opened up the owner's manual because I had this, and if there's a little bar right here, look, I can bring it down to, from the top of my MFT to the ceiling is 7 foot, 8 inches and 5/16. Now, what if I had to divide that in half? Oh my God, I'd have to go get my Construction Master 4 with fractions to do it, or use my iPhone. I'm sure there's apps on there for it, right? But man, I'll tell you right now, it's easier. I'm gonna bring this back to metric, everybody. Look, I'll bring it in, look. Okay, one more. All right, 2,344 millimeters divided by 2. That's easier to divide. Follow me? And if we look at the increments of measurement of a millimeter, it is so precise. Now, somebody asked me not too long ago, said, okay, this is what confuses me, 10, 20, 30. That's 10, right, millimeters, 20 millimeters, okay? Some tapes read, they're weird. Let me see if I have something here that shows that. Yeah, look, right here on this. It's 1, 2, 3. Those are centimeters, okay? On this folding rule, and I prefer using a folding rule the majority of the time, okay? In fact, that's the company, if you don't know, Stabila. They actually invented the folding rule way back when. So, look, this folding rule, I think most of my folding rules are metric Imperial, okay? I got this one from Lee Valley. This is my preferred. This is the one I keep in my pant leg, okay? But you see it's 1, 2, 3, but that's actually 10 millimeters, 20 millimeters, 30 millimeters. Now, the other thing I'll point out that's really cool about this tape is, remember I told you early in the video that I build frameless cabinets? They're based, and I do balanced panels, which are what? Based off of a 32 millimeter increment in height, okay? That's a standard worldwide for frameless cabinets. So, if I look and I'm designing something, there's dots on here. See that? On this tape, those are 32 millimeter increments. It's just like, I'm going to pull out, this is an old tape measure. But if we look at it, look, those little dots are like 16 on center, and you know what those are for. That's your stud spacing. But do you have marks on your tape for stuff like that? Your 16 on centers. 16, 32, 48. So that's where you place it. That's what those dots are for frameless cabinetry, 32 millimeter systems. So we're doing pretty good. And by the way, you're using metric. You do plywood? You use, do you do plywood? That's just funny. Do you use plywood? Okay. Guess what? This is, and you all know this. This is 18 millimeter, but you buy those router bits that are undersized, right? What is it for this plywood, 18 millimeter? What is it? It's 23/30 seconds. Guess what 23/30 seconds is? It's basically 18.2 millimeter. So that's an 18 millimeter bit is what you have there, that 23/30 seconds. All right, another thing that has aided me in here is I have a conversion here on my Construction Master. So if this is simple, I mean, you probably have the app on your iPhone, but I do simple things like this. I'm just gonna put it on so you can see this, all right? 4 feet, 3 inch and 7/8. Okay, I can hit the conversion here, and there's a little one, and that's what it is in millimeters. Okay, so you can always have something like this. Yes, you can get they have an app on your phone. Okay, so the other thing I'm going to point out is I always get this with routers. Okay, how to, setting a depth on a router. Well, it can be really easy. All right. But when I set depth on a router, I see, and you'll see this, like this is a metric scale here, right? Okay, I'm just gonna take this, I'm gonna loosen this. If I start with my bit here on the tabletop, and I need to go in 5 millimeters of depth, I'll just grab a gauge block. Look, I'll grab these right here. These are great gauge blocks. Where are they? Right here, okay? If I need to go in 5 millimeters, I don't use the scale, I use what? a gauge block, just like that. Okay, I lock it in, and now with that depth set rod, when I push in and I'm making that dado or groove or mortise, this is the top of my board. I'm going to continue to push it down, and that'll be 5 millimeters of depth. So when somebody asks, hey, metric versus imperial, I'm automatically going to metric. The millimeter to me has been one of the finest woodworking increments of measurement. It's I don't hate saying perfect, but for me it is. You are using metric in your daily lives. We're doing a slow conversion. One more thing on depth. When someone says I can't read the scale, okay, on my track saw, this is an older track saw. See how my scale is in metric? I never use it. Okay, I always will take, this is where I push my depth down. Okay, this part right here hits this right here. So when I take this and I bring it down, look, I just move this. Let's see if the camera can get in there, up to that. See, that's my depth. And then I'll add a millimeter or two and I'm good to go. All right, listen. See, listen to this. Each one of those clicks is a millimeter on here, okay? It's a very fine depth setting, and it's that simple. By the way, did I read the scale? No, I just used the tools. Did I read the scale here? No, I just used gauge blocks. I just zeroed out the saw. I just zeroed this out. So it's just something I like to teach people, and you'll see that in upcoming build videos when we're setting depths on things. So I think that's all I have for you. I truly hope that this made it a little bit easier to understand metric versus imperial. Okay? And don't forget, be positive and stay sharp.